So what did you think about the debate?
I thought it was pretty good. I feel like Horowitz really made the case for how like capitalism is the best way to elevate the poor out of poverty. I think that's really what libertarians need to do, because when we're trying to advocate free markets and voluntarism, we need to really say like this is the best way that we're going to be able to extend the lifeline to people who are so dependent on others. And by creating another government program, they're just going to get more dependent. If we use charity, if we use voluntary interaction, we can really I think it's more moral, because we're not using force to redistribute wealth. We're giving the poor the ability to help themselves out of poverty. I think Horowitz made that case really well.
And what kind of attracted you to this debate?
Well, I heard someone say it down there. I really didn't know what I was going to do, and I heard someone, and I was like, that sounds awesome, so let's go. Yeah, right on. Thank you.
My name's Kathy.
I'm Thaddeus. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You too. What school do you go to?
I go to American University, actually where Jeff Raymond teaches.
Oh, that's awesome.
Honestly, I think they both did a really fantastic job in the debate. They brought up some really interesting issues. I was surprised at how much agreement there was between them, and I think it shows that these are issues that can be addressed in a variety of ways, including from a libertarian perspective. If a Rawlsian philosopher like Jeff Raymond can understand that, I think that gives us a lot of ground.
And what was your favorite point made?
Oh, favorite point made. That's a tough choice. I'd have to say that my favorite point made, honestly, would be probably the general idea that I think the most compelling point made was that we have to think about those who are affected by people's decisions. Like Jeff Raymond brought up the children. I think that was a very compelling point. And I don't agree with him that government is really the best solution that we have to that. But it does force you to think, like, what can libertarianism do to address issues like that are very complicated.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with me. Have a great rest of the conference. Hi, I'm Kathy.
I'm Jesse. Nice to meet you.
You too. Do you go to school?
No, I'm just visiting.
So what was your favorite part of the debate?
Well, I guess I'm not sure what my favorite part was. It was definitely an interesting subject. I wish that, there were a couple things that I found sort of frustrating. That throughout the debate, I noticed like they both kept using this sort of idea, this word "we," like we have inequality. What should we do about it? And I kept thinking, you can do as you please as long as you leave me out of it. And I wish that I really felt like Horowitz sort of failed to address this like Rawlsian idea of, what justifies inequality, and why should why should someone else have this right to justify how much another person has? You know what I mean? Like, and there when the sort of Rawlsian professor, he made a few comments that were just that really went unanswered. I thought, like he's talking about redistribution as just sort of like a right that other people have, and it shouldn't be charity, and having a right to the product of someone else's labor, someone else, the things that they do is called slavery. That's not. And he's talking about dignity, and he says that receiving charity as like a gift is detrimental to the dignity of the receiver of the gift. Well, if that's detrimental to their dignity, then what about receiving stolen property? Isn't that worse than receiving a gift for your dignity? So, so I was a little frustrated that there wasn't someone taking more of a libertarian position on it. I felt like really we had two Rawlsians kind of debating the fine points of like Rawlsian social justice. You know what I mean? But but that's what I was thinking.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
No problem.
Have a great rest of the conference.
All right, yeah, thanks. You too.
Hi, I'm Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. I love your videos.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Tell me your
Okay.
name.
All right. My name's Zack. So I was sort of surprised and maybe a little bit disappointed. I know it wasn't exactly the topic, but I don't know how you can have a debate about inequality and poverty without talking about migration. And one thing that Steve could have really used if he wanted to make sort of the anti-government case is that, that the real inequality problem in the world is not between like me and another poor guy in the United States. It's between me and the guy in Haiti, right? And if children are not responsible for how they started, then the guy who was born across some imaginary line, and that's the cause of all of his poverty, that's not his fault either. So if people are serious about addressing inequality, then the first thing that they should be thinking about is, well, governments prevent people from moving and selling their labor freely, and that is like the big problem with inequality in the world. So I think that the fact that people don't focus on that sort of indicates that maybe that they're not really thinking about inequality, like the big picture of inequality, but instead they're wanting to knock people down who are rich, and they're concerned with things like that. So I think that we got a little bit of that from one of the debate participants, but he was careful not to sound like it's about envy or something like that. But I think that it's telling that immigration didn't show up in the debate. So I guess that was my big comment.
And did you like any of the points made, or did you enjoy the debate as a whole?
I mean, I did. I was just I think that they missed the biggest point. So I think that a lot of the points that were made were important, but sort of not quite as important as the big point, which is that most of global inequality is caused by government directly.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
It was nice to meet you. I'm speaking with Professors Horowitz and Ryman after they just did an amazing job debating income inequality. Great job, fellas. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for coming into enemy territory, and your brave soul.
These aren't my enemies.
We're all friends here. So how do you think it went? Are there any points that you wish you'd made?
Well, sure, there were 4,000 or 5,000 other things I wanted to say, but no, I thought it went very nicely. I thought that our differences, which I think are on the gentle side, came out. I think I am more skeptical of the claim that we can do away with government and that everything that government does makes things worse. But I'm open to it. I'm not opposed to it. We were originally going to talk about the drug war, but we agreed so much. That it would have been boring. I have a completely libertarian view of it. As you may have heard, I'm even against having to get a prescription. So on those kinds of questions, I'm quite sympathetic to libertarianism. I think the goal of society should be to maximize individuals' liberty. Okay. Now, I think that requires material means and legal means. Okay, and it requires things like preventing rich people from having too much influence. It requires getting rid of discrimination and things like that. Things which I would say maybe the government can help with, maybe they can't. Let's try. I think that, we could probably do a lot better than we have done.
I think one of the things that at least was implicit in some of our agreement was that even the current attempts to do the kinds of things that Jeff's talking about don't always work very well, and I think he'd rather see a different kind of way of approaching what government does. And so at least we can agree on the fact that the status quo is problematic. I mean, I think we can do better by getting government more out of those things and finding ways to end the restrictions on that prevent poor people from getting wealthier. But certainly what we have right now isn't doing a very good job of making poor, sort of helping the desperately poor. I think the other thing that really came out, we used this Will Smith clip from Pursuit of Happiness, and when we get focused on children, it gets difficult. How to deal with children is a problem for any political philosophy, libertarianism or otherwise. But it also pulls at our heartstrings in ways that make it sort of challenging to think about what do we do about these sort of things. And so I think again we have to ask the question: how no system's going to solve all of these problems, right? Question is, how do we do it better or worse? The poor, in some sense, will always be among us, and kids will always face difficult challenges. So how do we respond best to those?
I do think it's important to understand what kind of challenge the children pose here, and I'm not for winning the argument by pulling on your heartstrings. I'm not that bleeding heart. Well, I am personally a bleeding heart.
So am I. But
I think it's a question of fairness. I mean, you can see very clearly the unfairness of a child starting off in poverty. Okay. You can blame their parents for what they've done, the stupid mistakes. Okay, so that may be okay, But it's very clear that it can't be right that for no action that they themselves have done or could have done, one child is significantly worse off in their starting point than another. That just can't be right. And so,
and the question becomes, how do we hopefully prevent that, and then how do we deal with it when we face it?
And it shows that the market itself is not enough, okay? Maybe you have to do things to spread the market, to get more people into it, but the market itself won't guarantee that, because it works from where people are.
And I think that's right, is as long as we understand that the market we also need, and libertarians are finally beginning to talk about this in a serious way. We need these institutions of civil society because no matter what, even if we have the kind of role for government that Jeff's talking about, we still need to have these other kinds of organizations that help people in a variety of ways. They'll always, I think, have a role to play in any society, whether as libertarians we tend to think they can do more than they do now and they do it better than government, even if government has some minimal role, we still need them. So we have to think beyond just the market in the narrow sense to all the kinds of voluntary institutions of civil society.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So if students want to learn more about you guys' work and your perspective, where should they go? What are some things that you're working on that you want them to know about?
Well, I mean, they can find me at American University. They can send me an email. I'd be happy to communicate with people that have serious questions. As I told you, I've just now got a book out that's a kind of Marxian defense of capitalism. It's called As Free and as Just as Possible, The Theory of Marxian Liberalism, that takes seriously on one hand the right of individuals to liberty, and on the other hand the Marxian claim that a private property system is coercive. It forces people who don't have property to work for those who do, and tries to work between those things. It's a defense of the difference principle that I talked about. So, I'm interested in all of those issues, and I continue to be, and I'd be happy to talk to students who are genuinely interested in that and have questions about it.
It sounds like a great book.
You can find me blogging at coordinationproblem.org or bleedingheartlibertarians.com. The best way to find me, though, is Facebook. So friend me on Facebook. That's how to keep up with what Steve's doing.
See, I'm an old fogey. I don't even know what he's talking about, okay?
Thank you guys so much.
You can't find me on Facebook. I promise.
Thanks,
Okay?
Dan.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you.